San Juan Mountains, with their pinnacles piercing the sky, became the obsession of so many during the Western Gold Rush. With its wealth of minerals buried deep beneath, prospectors from around the world often traveled many months to stake their claim. Using primitive transportation techniques, it was nearly impossible to make a profit. The Iron Horse would change all of that, and in 1880, William Jackson Palmer brought his Denver and Rio Grande Railroad to the San Juans to move these minerals from the mines to market. The Animas River Valley became the perfect spot for General Palmer's railroad town, which the governor of Colorado named Durango. The free-flowing Animas River is one of the key reasons that Palmer built his town here. The valley offered protection from storms, plenty of resources for farming, and thousands of acres of land for expanding. Stunningly beautiful and scenic, the town has turned into a top destination, not just for tourism, but also as a great place to live. Palmer's influence on the area is still alive and well today, not just with his namesake hotel, but also the crowning attraction, the Durango and Silverton Narrow Gauge Railroad. The original depot is one of the oldest buildings in town, with the signature of Denver and Rio Grande insignia still held high. In the 1980s, a citrus grower from Florida saved the line from certain abandonment by the Rio Grande. What remains today is one of the most historic railroad lines in the United States. The Durango and Silverton continues the tradition of running daily trains on its 45-mile line. During the busy tourist season, 3 trains a day leave Durango, bound for the mining town of Silverton. It's rare these days to see cars and engines lettered for the Denver and Rio Grande Western, but today's ride takes us back to the 1970s, a time where the majority of the narrow gauge was being removed and uncertainty surrounded the Durango and Silverton. The Denver and Rio Grande owned most of the 3-foot narrow gauge railroads in the southwestern part of Colorado, scattered across many valleys. They carried minerals, lumber, oil, livestock, heavy equipment, and of course, the U.S. mail. The system had many hubs, and Durango was one of them. Over time, the original 19th century engines were not as capable of pulling the ever longer trains coming from the mines. This led the Denver and Rio Grande to order their first new engines in over 20 years. These replacement Mikado engines arrived on the line in 1923 and were classified as K-28s. They were the first engines with larger 44-inch driving wheels and modern superheaters. During World War II, 7 of the original 10 units were sent to assist the war effort in Alaska by running on the White Pass and Yukon Railroad. Unfortunately, none of them returned, and only 3 of these unique Alco locomotives remain today. The Durango and Silverton Narrow Gauge Railroad has lovingly maintained these engines to keep them operating, even though their current fleet of Class K36 and K37 locomotives do most of the heavy lifting. Engine 476 has been a fan favorite due to her time working in movies and being featured in several historical pictures and paintings. With the 476 wearing her retro diamond stack and the coaches wearing their original Denver and Rio Grande lettering, we are on our way to Silverton and will be recreating what the train ride would have been like in the 1970s, near the end of the Rio Grande's ownership. The fall colors of golden leaves, green pine trees, and snow-capped mountains are breathtaking in October. The rail in Silverton lays silent as it awaits our train from Durango. Let's take a moment and listen to the sounds of the past as 476 carries our passenger train to Silverton. Steam engines are very thirsty. The original Needleton water tank was in use up until the 1970s, but fell into disrepair quickly after they stopped using it. A group of volunteers restored it in the early 2000s, and it's one of 2 original tanks left on this line. As our journey continues through the Animas River Canyon, the sights, sounds, and smells of the Old West are everywhere. The engine is chugging away, echoing off the canyon walls and 100-year-old trees. It is truly poetry in motion. Rising over 400 feet above the Animas River, the High Line is considered one of the most spectacular pieces of 19th century engineering on any railroad in the United States. At a cost of over $1,000 per foot, this 2-mile section was blasted out of the rock face and is a perfect example of why narrow gauge was used on these mountain railroads. It's not all scary heights and twisting turns. There are also some wide meadows. And gentle river valleys with low bridges. Mountain railroading can take a turn for the worse in the blink of an eye. Even on a warm, sunny day in Durango, it can easily be snowing up in Silverton.
As crow flies across the mountain on a bright November day, with the whole world far below. That's how I'll go someday. But in the loneliness of winter, in those dark and windy days, spring might seem like such a long time, but it's not so far away as the crow flies.
It's rare these days to see a steam train in Silverton wading through the snow. Due to safety concerns, the railroad normally closes down the northern part of the line into Silverton at the end of October. This unusual storm reminds us all what it would have been like to run this line year-round.
As a crow flies.
Today, however, we are seeing the last vestige of fall before the ground is covered in snow for the next 4 to 6 months. The formidable peaks of the Uncompahgre Mountains tower over what originally was called Baker's Park. When Palmer's survey team arrived here in 1882, assuming they could easily build through to Ouray and Telluride, they were met with a harsh reality. They came here to strike it rich, but very few did. For over 150 years, these mountains have been pillaged for the wealth held within. The remnants of good times past are scattered throughout the Uncompahgre Mountains around Silverton. A glimpse at man's ingenuity, impatience, and greed. Once great railroads that served the mines in the region, now practically non-existent outside of a few feet of track and a caboose. The prospectors have gone, but the town is still bustling, guests ironically looking for quietness that this town never had. The Old West is well preserved, buildings over 100 years old, still eager to greet weary travelers. Within sight of town center, several mines dot the tallest peaks, all of which lay silent. The Silverton Cemetery gives us a grim reminder of how difficult life was. And those that stayed eventually found their peace among the mountains. The last carload of ore left Silverton in 1952, the tired mines finally running out of value. The complicated to construct and maintain Silverton Railroad then vanished overnight, and the original Rio Grande right-of-way from Durango was altered so the daily tourist trains could drop off patrons downtown on 12th Street, where most of the shops and restaurants are located. Today, it's hard to discern the railroad's origins amongst the vastly altered landscape. People of all ages and walks of life travel great distances just to see a working steam engine. They come for a glimpse of the Old West, even though the Old West has catered to them here for over 75 years. The crew of the Durango and Silverton continue the work of the once great Denver and Rio Grande Western, passing the knowledge down through generations, just like it was done in the past. They are fans of the railroad above all else. They come here to be part of one of the most unique railroading experiences in the entire country. The railroad itself is history in motion, riding behind century-old steam engines and coaches as they snake their way through the Animas Canyon on rails that at one point in time carried the wealth of this region in the form of gold and silver. Of all the railroads that have come and gone in Colorado, it's incredible to think that the narrow gauge line from Durango to Silverton, with its modest beginnings, has been the longest lasting. It's the quintessential railroad buff's dream. It's the employees, guests, and enthusiasts who keep it going for the rest of us to enjoy, ensuring this dream never ends.